There's something so satisfying about switching roles on the fly. I bring a lot to the party.
The most important Dragonflight data yet. Alright, let's see this.
World of Warcraft is only just coming out of probably the darkest period in its history.
So far.
And while I've suspected some things, I haven't had the firm data until today. Because something that we...
Oh wow, he's dressed up, okay.
...has now been confirmed. That is, in fact, from the horse's mouth, the Dragonflight did not sell as well as Shadowlands. The question is, what does that...
What does it say? Dragonfly early sales have not reached the level of the prior expansion. Community feedback on the title has been positive. That's true. So they don't have actually a comparative number. They just said that it sold less. Yeah, by less. Was it like 50,000 less out of like, you know, 4 million? Or was it like 2 million versus 4 million? Well, where is it?
Not sell as well as Shadowlands.
Way less, maybe.
The question is, what does that reflect more on? Dragonflight or Shadowlands? I'm fairly sure it's the latter, and we're going to learn a whole bunch more today,
NBFA.
even as we go into the MAUs of Blizzard and its overall performance as a business, and what that means for us players going forward.
Okay.
With the help of today's sponsor, HelloFresh. Right, here's the deal straight up. Processed food is literally killing us. All of us, right?
Oh, that reminds me.
That's the deal. Plus, I can't keep going on wasting money in delivery apps, and that is why I use HelloFresh.com, where the code Bellular65 gets you 65% off plus free shipping. Their meal kit delivery service is absolutely killer. I believe it is one of the easiest ways you can directly improve your life. I've been using them for years. All you do is select meals ahead of time on their app. They are delivered to you in a cooled box. You store the things appropriately. Some stuff goes in the pantry, some in the fridge, and that is your grocery shopping done. And when it's time to cook, and today, by the way, I'm showing off this delicious and super fast dal, all you do is grab the recipe bag, grab the refrigerated ingredients, follow their step-by-step.
They got any recipes without any of that fucking vegetable shit in it? Like just some meat and potato? No, because it's like, you gotta admit, my man, I don't want that shit. They gotta add a thing as a steak.
Guide on the recipe card, and you are done. Everything is pre-measured. And in their rapid meals, which is honestly really what I need, they've got really great time savers. Maybe like your pre-diced chicken, stuff that's perfectly pre-measured. So damn handy. It means that the hassle of shopping and planning, which are the things that I believe get in the way of us being healthy, those things are gone. And since you get what you need, there's no pointless food waste, no random ingredients cluttering up your home, and that all makes cleanup so much easier. The dal was absolutely delicious, by the way, and dead easy to prepare. It's an amazing way to get into cooking. They're carbon neutral, they ship recyclable packaging, they cut food waste versus fast food. They are cheaper, faster, and much more healthy, with complete nutritional info included on the recipe cards.
Oh, so they're probably gonna have vegetables and shit. Man, vegetables are bad for you? I seen a person that has meat in them, but I never seen a person with lettuce in them. Nobody ever grown lettuce off of their body, but people all have meat in them, so like, obviously, you're supposed to eat meat and not lettuce. It's just that simple. When was the last time you ever seen a zucchini growing out of somebody's head? Never.
They are a boon to my quality of life, and they can be to yours as well. If you click the link below, the code Bellular65 gets you 65% off. Monthly active users, then, MAUs. The way that those work is that if you play one game from Blizzard in a month, you'll be an MAU. If you play, say, both World of Warcraft and Hearthstone, you'd actually be counted as 2 MAUs. So that number...
That sounds disingenuous. That you're counting the same person twice because they play 2 different games?
Actually rose from 31 million in the third quarter of last year to 45 million, which is
the only way that I would assume that that would not be a disingenuous number is if like each one was calculated separately and they weren't sold as a combined data set.
Increase of 45%. And, well, actually an increase of 21 million monthly active users, a 114% increase from the fourth quarter of 2021, so a year prior, which is...
Let me read these again. Monthly active users, Activision. Okay, so Activision is kind of gone. Let's see. So this is from before. This is now. Let's see. So Blizzard has actually gone up by a lot. Holy shit! Look at that. Wow. It was 24. Now it's 45.
Quarter of 2021, so a year prior.
Well, Blizzard's doing great.
Which is kind of impressive, and we'll dive into that more. Their segment revenue and operating income, which doesn't matter to us, but I guess is important, that grew 90% year over year in Q4, though obviously that would kind of always happen because of Overwatch 2 and World of Warcraft. Now on that then, World of Warcraft.
That's good because they hired 100 extra people for the WoW team.
Let's talk about it. So our game has delivered significant year-on-year growth in terms of its reach, engagement, and net bookings, which is the money bit. Now that means over $100 million in the fourth quarter of last year per the calendar. So if you're ever wondering how much money the game makes, well, there you go.
You do the math.
Now, this is where we get to the less good thing-ish. And that is that early Dragonflight sales figures have actually not reached the level of Shadowlands. If you'd like some context on that.
I think that's a good thing. This might sound like a copium answer that I'm saying that, but I actually think it's a good thing. Because the game isn't massively overhyped. It's not this like huge amazing thing that everybody thinks is going to change the world. This is new. This is going to save WoW. It's just a good solid expansion that builds the foundation of the game. And that's what it needs so much more than more bells and whistles.
Shadowlands, at its time, was the fastest sell-through to day one PC game of all time. So that basically is pre-orders through to day one. It was almost instantly dethroned by Cyberpunk 2077, and I suppose both Cyberpunk and Shadowlands were games that set records and then kind of crash and burn with their launch. And I think ultimately that is why we have not seen those people come back with the Dragonflight expansion.
I also think, obviously, back whenever Shadowlands was being sold, this was in December of 2020. This was at the very beginning of like COVID coming full swing. People were taking that really seriously. So there were more people at home that were looking for entertainment.
I mean, now they have admitted it. We suspected this first whenever they didn't boast about their sales figures.
Yeah.
Obviously, now they are, well, they're saying it's not sold as well. But they're saying that in a context that, from their perspective, community feedback has been positive.
I think that that's undeniable. That the community feedback for Dragonflight has been infinitely better than Shadowlands and also BFA. And I would even go as far to say that the community feedback for Dragonflight, I do not remember, like in my mind, a time that, community feedback was so positive. I think the last time might have been like, the end of Legion? Yeah, the end of Legion. Like the last, and also like even, I don't even think the end of Legion. Because like people were still mad. Like you still had Legendary RNG, you still had Titan Forging. Like there was a bunch of like shit systems in Legion. I'm thinking like, I remember at the beginning of BC, people were pretty happy. At the beginning of Wrath, bro, everybody thought Blizzard phoned it in for Wrath. Because all they did was re-release the same Nax raid. And like nobody gave a shit about it. Obviously it was really popular, but people thought the game was a joke. And then in Cataclysm, people thought there was no content in Cataclysm because there were the 3 raids, but the 3 raids were like super fucking hard, so nobody could really do them. And then in Mists of Pandaria, like maybe Mists of Pandaria, but there were a lot of people that complained about daily quests. Yeah, a lot of issues with the game. Yeah, Mists of Pandaria, a lot of issues with the game. They killed Twinking. Yeah, I would consider that a W for Mists of Pandaria. I've never met a gladiator that twinked back then, okay? There's always 1,700 trash cans that were paying extra gold to be better than people that just started the game a week ago. Twinking is such a fucking, like, a loser activity. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Point is that I think Dragonflight has had the most positive reception of an expansion that I can remember.
Post-launch subscriber retention is in fact higher than recent expansions in the West. Now, in the West, I think is a relevant bit because, of course, their retained players is going to fall all the way to essentially 0 in China because the game
it's
well,
gone.
doesn't
really count.
It's closed down in China completely, which is mad.
Bro, that sucks for the Chinese guys over there playing. Like, imagine, dude, you've had your account for 10 years and it just gets shut down because of some fucking, like, corporate dispute. That sucks.
Now, when we're talking about recent expansions with an S, that means Legion, BFA, Shadowlands. I think it's pretty damn obvious that Dragonflight is a better expansion than BFA and Shadowlands. As for Legion, I wouldn't be surprised if Legion even had a higher fall-off rate, but I think that would be because it was able to draw in so many people.
I think that Dragonflight is a better expansion than Legion, but I think for its time, Legion was a better expansion than Dragonflight. Like, contextually, Legion was like I think Dragonflight innovated the game in some ways, but Legion was the last major innovation for WoW. Like, it really felt like a huge difference going from WoD to Legion. Like, that was like, it's like you were going from playing WoW, like WoW 2 at that point. It was like WoW 1 would be like, you know, Wrath, like it would end at Wrath. Like, you were playing WoW 2 and Legion felt like WoW 3.
Even the more fair weather people. Whereas when I look at the Dragonflight expansion, what I really see from it is an expansion that doesn't have anywhere near the hype of WoD or of Legion, right? Because Warlords of Draenor, like, think about its marketing campaign.
Well, yeah, the WoD, I mean, like, WoD had a much more interesting campaign, bro. Like, and again, what was the WoD marketing campaign? Do you remember all those old, sweaty, hairy men? Well, guess what? They're back. And all the fucking old, sweaty, hairy men that were playing WoW were like, oh, yeah, bro, it's gonna be so good. And then, of course, they're just sitting in their garrison all day, so they quit. But, like, before WoD came out, everybody was so fucking excited.
Think about how much that resonated.
Yeah, chills,
with people
brother.
who were really there for, like, the core, you know, galloping abs and sweaty muscles, heavy metal side of World of Warcraft.
Exactly.
Or, of course, Legion, right? Being the big comeback with Illidan, the character that, like, everyone knows the franchise knows.
Big, hairy,
whereas Dragonflight
man.
was just, hey,
it's a dragon.
there's a storm dragon that looks kind of gnarly, and you're going to a place you haven't been before. And also, it's the dragons, which is a part of the WoW canon that only the more dedicated lore people particularly know about, because previously, so much of the dragons was really dealt with in the novels. So
and that's what happened with Deathwing back in Cataclysm, is that whenever Cataclysm came out, people were like, who the fuck is Deathwing? But, like, I read the Deathwing book when I was in, like, high school, so I was super hyped about Cataclysm. I was as hyped for Cataclysm as I was for Wrath.
For all those reasons, yeah, people were burnt because of Shadowlands, so Dragonflight would only be able to get the most willing to come back of unretained or lost players. And I don't think Dragonflight would have had a strong enough reach because of its overall concept and its execution of the likes of the Drakthir, which...
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, you can't add a scaly race and then be like, hey, yeah, this is the new thing that everybody's getting. It's so crazy. And what are we really fighting against? It's like nothing. There's no real cohesive badass character in Dragonflight either. Like, for example, in Mists of Pandaria, you had, like, Li Shen and you had Garrosh. In WoD, you had Gul'dan, Garrosh, and Grom. And also Archimonde. In Legion, you had Illidan. And then you had Kil'jaeden. And then, like, what was it? Also, you had Khadgar, too. Let's see, in Shadowlands... No, BFA. In BFA, who'd you have in BFA? Not really a lot, actually. Yeah, BFA probably about the same. Blackhand, yeah. Like Jaina, yeah, I guess kind of Jaina, I guess. And Jaina probably would be the main one. Then in Shadowlands, like, what do we have in Shadowlands? Like, the best thing about Shadowlands was fucking Denathrius. Yeah, Saurfang. Yeah, Saurfang was cool. Yeah, basically, like, yeah, those. So, like, having those key characters, I think, really helped sell the old expansions. And Dragonflight just doesn't have one of those key characters. Like, Alexstrasza is kind of like that, but it's definitely not as strong of a sell as something like fucking Illidan, right?
Well and good for many, many people, but I think not as marketable a concept as other ways they could have taken that. Now, in the earnings call, they also talked about Arclight Rumble continuing to progress well through regional testing, which sure has been a while. It's a bit weird. Then, based on the previous earnings calls, what is weird is that that game was supposed to launch in 2022.
Yeah.
But it still is in regional testing. Now, what that will often mean for a mobile game is that it's not really converting. Because the way that these mobile games work, right, is you work out your average revenue per user, and you work out your cost of acquisition, and you go brrr on that marketing.
Yep.
Right? That's like the mobile model. So what they often do in those soft launch periods is they really try to just hone all that shit in before they basically just, you know, go gas on the marketing side of things. So probably not a great thing.
So it probably,
I will say from the people
what they're saying is that it doesn't have enough microtransactions.
I know, for what it is, it's a fun game. And then, of course, they also mentioned that, yes, they will try to find alternate ways to have the game be in China. Okay, so
Good.
That's a bunch of what we learned from Blizzard themselves. What I can now talk about is some of our own in-game data. So we do really once or twice every raid tier, or every season in the game. We basically look at all of the publicly available data to see how the game is actually performing.
Okay,
So we
let's
looked
see.
at guild raid participation metrics for the opening patch of Dragonflight, and we compared that to all
I think we've
recent,
seen this part, yeah.
expansions. And
This was in a video
patches,
we already
within
watched.
the first few months of release, so that we you know, we'd be like actually apples to
Yeah.
apples. And what was really helpful there is that Castle Nathria and Vault of the Incarnates have extremely similar seasonal timings, which just makes those two a really good point of comparison.
Right.
And here's what we found out, right? For both normal and heroic, Vault of the Incarnates did see an increase over the previous raid tier, Sepulchre of the First Ones. But the problem is, it only brought those numbers up to where they were in the Sanctum of Domination.
Yeah, you're comparing the first patch. This is Sanctum of Domination, and this is Castle Nathria right here. Because, like, look at the numbers down here. So, like, what he's really saying is that Vault of the Incarnates is performing just like a slight little bit better than Sanctum of Domination. And you got to keep in mind, Sanctum of Domination was that was right whenever Korthia came out. Like, the worst patch of all time for Blizzard, number one. Number two, it was during the whole lawsuit investigation California thing. And then number three, that's whenever a bunch of other people moved over to Final Fantasy. You see what I'm saying? So it was just so many different things.
And if you remember patch 9.1 and Sanctum of Domination,
Bad.
that had experienced a massive drop-off
Yeah.
from Castle Nathria. And right now, we, in the rating side of things, are absolutely not at Castle Nathria level numbers.
Not even close.
Now, that is a problem for World of Warcraft, because both Battle for Azeroth with Uldir and Shadowlands with Castle Nathria had very large spikes in graphs. So, of course, this does very much line up with those sales figures that are reported.
Yeah, and you can't say that it was just COVID, because if you look at 8.0 right here, 8.0 obviously was Uldir first patch of BFA, and this is Shadowlands and first patch of Shadowlands, Castle Nathria. They're about the same. So you can't just say Castle Nathria only did well because of COVID.
By Blizzard, that they are lower, and that is something that originally we were able to sort of deduce during our research and analysis process for that past video. And really our data showed that ultimately the peaks and valleys for raid participation from guilds is on a continuing downward trend since Antorus, really. And that's just when you exclude the outlier.
That's because Antorus was easy. Like, that's a big reason why Antorus and all of the raids back then were popular, is because they were easy. The problem now is that raids are too complex and they're just too hard. They require you to do too many things, and number scaling is too high. It's really rough.
Of Castle Nathria. And when you compare the Legion expansion to...
And the thing is also, even if you think that the raids are not that hard, you have to include like the added difficulty of the logistics of getting at least 10 people together and compare that directly against Mythic Plus. Because right now, Mythic Plus is just a better way of getting gear. Like, yeah, if you want the best gear, you need to raid also. But most people are completely fine doing Mythic Plus and then pushing that and then not raiding. Because overall, it takes way less time, and the time that it does take, it doesn't need to be scheduled. You can do it whenever you want. Mythic Plus effectively cannibalized raiding in a big way, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Through the 2 expansions that follow it, you actually see that Legion was able to grow throughout its lifetime, which is a pretty damn incredible thing, whereas the other 2 just fell during their lifetime. Now, that's the quantitative side. To look at the qualitative side, I would say that Vault of Incarnates is a really fantastic raid. And as we concluded
I think
in
it's good
our
too.
statistics video, Dragonflight's launch is likely a success by most metrics that matter. Right? There is a measure of success, but ultimately, it is a situation of a strong but not giga hype foundation being laid down.
I think that what's more important than numbers with no context is numbers with trajectory. So, for example, like with Shadowlands, this is how I think it went, right? That's obviously players, and this is time, right? And so Shadowlands went like this. Dragonflight is probably going, like, I would say probably like this, you know, or maybe something like this. And I would say that this right here it's going down. Yeah, every expansion, like after people play it, of course Dragonflight's going to go down. That's the way every single game works, is that as soon as content gets released, people play it, and then they stop playing it. That's what makes sense. But I would argue that this graph is more reassuring than this one. Even though this one starts off higher, and it is higher, it's going down faster.
Buy Hogwarts Legacy cheaper on G2A.com. Immerse yourself in the magical open world RPG.